war. We all want peace.
Yeah, none of us does.
And I think everyone's ready to make concessions for peace. And I think everyone in Israel recognizes that the two-state solution means giving up land for peace. There's no doubt about that.
So why are we not moving forward intelligently and getting this done?
If I had the answer to that, I'd be in George Mitchell's place.
Okay, but here, think about this. You're amongst the smartest, period, okay? We're talking about very smart people here. Mm-hmm. When things don't happen, it's because there is a causal relationship that's precisely the same as when things do happen. There is a motivation.
Right.
There is a direction. And I'm asking for the motivation to continue this protracted conflict without resolution.
You know, it's interesting. Yasser Arafat, who was a terrorist that known to the entire Western world, and someone who no Israeli leader would ever have sat down with in the 1960s and 1970s,
sure,
was someone that Rabin shook hands with, Netanyahu shook hands with. There was a real effort for peace with Yasser Arafat, a known terrorist. But
right.
Why? Because at some point Yasser Arafat said, okay, you have a right to exist. We have a right to exist. Let's figure it out. At that point, everyone was willing to sit down opposite someone who was a terrorist and make peace and try and forge peace. So I think the willingness and the desire of people to do that on both sides is there. The question is, at this particular time in our history, in the year 2011, you have someone on the other side of the table saying, not only do you not have a right to exist, I want to murder you. So that paradigm has to change before anyone can be expected to sit down and try and make peace.
And my question remains, if you cannot sit down with somebody who wants to destroy you, then the U.S. government is sitting down with the Taliban. The United States government is sitting down with the Iranians. The United States has sat down in previous times with those who were its enemies, whether it be the Soviet Union, its satellite states. That's too convenient because without engagement, you don't get an answer, except continuation of the status quo, which is, as you would acknowledge, insufferable for both Israelis and for the Palestinians.
Absolutely, but there has always, I mean, even if you look at the situation with the Gilad Shalit, the Israeli soldier held in captivity now for 3 years by Hamas, there have been indirect negotiations with Hamas. Israelis have not said, we're not going to talk to you. Right. There have been indirect negotiations, indirect talks. No one has ever said no 100%. However, if we want to get to core issues, like really figuring out the boundaries and giving up land for peace, which Israel will have to do, and acknowledging certain pieces of territory belong to the Palestinians, certain pieces of territory belong to the Israelis, if we want to get to that point, you can only do that if there's a mutual recognition of a right to exist. The Israelis have acknowledged
there's no excuse.
Have a right to a state, have a right to exist, have a right to be free, have a right to their own borders, their own defense, their own police force, all of that.
Okay, but what gives a state a right, as you put it, to its own security if it's incapable of securing itself? Israel is point blank, and this is something I do not understand why there would not be acknowledgement. Without the support of the United States, Israel could not exist. Period. This is not even a debatable issue. We can talk about the vaunted Israeli military. We can talk about the superb technology, its nuclear weaponry. The fact is, if it came to a conflict that was a significant conflict, Israel is indefensible. Whether the border is 9 miles, 25 miles, it is inconceivable to me that there is an attitude that 9 miles is the difference here. Am I wrong?
No, I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is Israel, by its very geographic location, is caught between states and peoples who mean its destruction as it stands now, save Jordan. Save officially the government of Egypt, but highly questionable the role of other entities within Egypt. So the point being, to suggest that 9 miles is the difference between the existence of Israel and its non-existence is really a bizarre statement to me, because what the real difference is not borders, but the relationship between Israel and the United States for its existence.
Quite frankly, both are necessary, and without having to get into a whole lecture about military strategy in Israel,
look,
there is a reality that if you had to defend yourself, you have to mobilize troops and tanks and all kinds of other weapons from one border to another across the country, and in doing so, you need a certain amount of breadth of territory to do that. Not only that, because of the nature of the weapons.
Are you seriously telling me, George? Forgive me, but let me ask you this.
Yes.
Leave the borders as they are. Leave the settlements where they are. Are you seriously saying to me that you believe that if certain states decided to use intermediate missiles and launch them at Israel, that the result would not be a foregone conclusion? If it were not for the assured destruction of those who would do such a thing?
I think that there are systems in place and technologies in place that could be used to defend the state of Israel, regardless of its size.
Okay.
Whether it's 9 miles, 12 miles, or 20 miles wide.
That's what I'm saying.
However, there are advantages to those technologies and systems given an extra few miles. When a missile is traveling as fast as it does, an extra few miles can make a big difference in
being able
to defend yourself.
Of course it can. And I don't want to get down to a statement of how many seconds 9 miles amounts to in those moments. But my point being, George, simply to say that the passion, the emotion that the Prime Minister displayed. Look, I am as critical of this president as anyone you will ever encounter in the national media. Almost anyone, I would guess. But to take on the President of the United States in this way is so disappointing. It's a sad thing to watch. And I think the Prime Minister owes our President an apology. It's that simple.
Listen, all I can say is that knowing...
I'm not expecting it. I just said what was appropriate.
I can appreciate that, and as an American, I can also see that point of view and understand that the President of the United States, no matter who he is or from what party, demands a certain level of respect when being talked to, whether directly or in the media.
Yeah.
I understand that. As someone who lives in Israel and understands Israeli mentality and, quite frankly, the Prime Minister's thoughts and feelings, yesterday there was certainly an unchecked, visceral response to the President's words. And should someone have taken another 30 minutes to cool the Prime Minister down before he said something? Maybe.
We'll leave it with maybe, George. It's good of you to be here. I hope you'll come back soon.
The Lou Dobbs Show.